Welcome everyone to the POLITUR International Workshop Seminar. We are going to start now. I am Salvador Anton Clavé. I'm the principal investigator of the GRATET research group. And with Paolo Russo, we are the two principal investigators of the project POLITUR. That is the project that is the umbrella of this event of these 2 days, today and tomorrow. The POLITUR project has as a main goal to discuss about ways in which tourism destinations face transformations created by the multiple mobilities inherent in contemporary societies, as well as understanding how urban and regional policies and digital regulatory mechanisms can facilitate a path towards place prosperity and sustainability. This was the objective of the POLITUR project when we started it 3 years ago. We are now in the final phase, and we are doing this event in order to present some results and also to discuss with other researchers that are interested in this specific topic. But we want to say also that this is even more important in this current COVID-19 times, where mobilities is at the center, as the pure center of the problem that we are facing globally as a society, and also, of course, in our tourism destinations. This is, as I said, this is the final event of the project. And as a final event of the project, we would like to share with you some of the advancements, some of the achievements that we have made, but also to invite you to participate with other researchers in this 4 sessions activity related to the discussion on different sides of this general topic of mobilities transforming destinations. In particular, we'll start today, this morning, with a first session about mobilities, planning, urban design, and social equity. We will have the presentation of Monica Degen as a keynote speaker. Thank you, Monica, for being here. Then this afternoon, we'll follow with a second session about digital fingerprints, technological tools, and tourism mobility. We'll have for this afternoon session, Dr. Yang from the Temple University, also to give us a keynote. Then tomorrow morning at 10, like today, we'll follow with a third session about tourism policies, mobilities, place prosperity, and sustainability. We'll have for this session, giving the keynote, Dr. Joseph Cheer from the Wakayama University and the Monash University. Thank you. You are here also now, Joseph. Thank you for also being with us during these 2 days. And then we'll finish the afternoon of tomorrow with the last session about mobilities, research, and social impact with the keynote presentation of Dr. Degen from the University of Primorska, Slovenia. During the session, we'll have every session will have about 5 presentations, and our idea is to create, even though we have to do that in this online format, to create room for discussion, to create room for facilitating the emergence of new ideas, and also to discuss about everything. Thank you, the keynotes. Thank you, the participants. Thank you, the members of the team. Thank you especially for those that have been participating in the organization, especially to some of those that won't be in the headlines, but are especially important in this event, like Trini Rovira, Cinta Sanz, Eugenia, Jordi Andreu, and all of the people of our team that has created the conditions for making it possible. Thank you also to the organizations. Thanks first to the National Plan of Research of the Ministry of the Science, Innovation and Universities of Spain, because this project is developed with the funding of this specific program from this ministry. So we have to thank it not only because of the event, but also because we had the opportunity to work in this in this topic of mobilities transforming destination, thanks to the funding of this ministry. But also thank you to the organizations that have been collaborating with us for the development of this event, especially the Faculty of Economic and Business of the Open University of Catalonia, also Eurecat, the Technological Center of Catalonia, also the Regional Studies Association, who has been really instrumental in the dissemination of this event, and also finally the City Council of the City of Barcelona, and especially the Department of Tourism of this City of Barcelona. This is just for presentation. Now we will start. I think that we think that it's important is to start with all the contents discussion about the topic and the presentations of the several speakers. And so to start with the first session, I'll give the floor to Dr. Antonio Paulo Russo, who is chairing this first session and who is going to give a short introduction about the meaning of this session and also about our keynote speaker, Monica Degen from the Brunel University London. Thank you very much. I hope that this will be a very interesting 2 days of discussions about mobilities, transforming destinations. Paulo, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you very much, Salvador. So I will be chairing this first session of the POLITUR workshop. Just some technical issues. So I am inviting the people who are in this room and are not talking to switch off the microphone and the camera possibly, so that we can use the full power of our fantastic technological connections. And I just want to remind all the other, well, both the people who are here in this room and the people who are going to be watching the whole event that is being broadcasted live in YouTube, that they can use the YouTube chat, especially for making questions to the speakers. So we'll have a little time after the first keynote and then after each of the presentations for making questions in the chat that I will collect, and then I will I will redirect to the speakers. Just one more thing, we have a lot of registered people in this event. I think around 160. Some of them are our doctoral students. Our doctoral students who are also using this event as a training event, a learning event for their PhD program. And then we have many others from all over the world. Just to let you know that we are going to have the whole thing also recorded in YouTube. So those of you who cannot stay in the room for the full event live will also have the opportunity to get back to that afterwards and see the recording. We are going to send the links as well as the certification participate to all the people who have registered to this event and will be watching it live or recorded. So for this first session, we have I have the pleasure to introduce Monica Degen as our keynote speaker. She is a very well-known scholar in the field of sociology, but as many other people working in the same field, struggling through disciplinary boundaries. So she's very much read by urban geographers, geographers like us, and actually her work on Barcelona and the transformations of Barcelona is very well known by all of us who have been working on the construction and transformation of Barcelona as a tourist city in the last decade or so. Then for the rest of the paper-based session, I will also make some introduction. But now I will leave the word to Monica. And please, Monica, you are already in the room. I will shut up myself and leave the whole floor to you. If you can upload your PowerPoint easily. Otherwise,
yeah, I'm just trying. Good morning, everybody.
Great.
Okay, let's stop. Right, can everybody see the presentation? Yes, Paolo? Yeah, ok, great. Good morning, everybody. Y buen día a tothom. Primero de todo, quería darle las gracias a Julie Wilson y Antonio Paolo por invitarme a este workshop, y también decir que siento mucho que no nos podamos ver en persona y esperemos que pronto la situación cambie. I'm also very much looking forward to the forthcoming papers after my talk. So let me start with contextualizing basically what I'm going to talk about today. I want to present arguments I developed with Gillian Rose in our forthcoming book, The New Urban Aesthetic, How Digital Culture Mediates the Experience of the City, published by Bloomsbury next year. In this book, we examine how everyday sensory experiences of a city are mediated by digital technologies. And we argue that in the current era of aesthetic capitalism, or so-called experience economy, new sensorial dynamics are produced through the interrelationship between diverse digital technologies, the redevelopment of urban landscapes, but also different bodies. And in a way, I guess what I thought is that this talk would fit well with themes of mobility, as we're talking about how now images are mobilized and travel through digital media due to, of course, globalization, but that digital technologies are a key aspect of that social change. So what we really focus in the book then is on how images are basically mediating in new ways everyday urban sensations, and how they reshape the way cities are planned, branded, represented, designed. My talk today sketches out how Instagram in particular is re-articulating branding and placemaking processes, physically transforming urban environments and radically changing our experience in and of cities. So while there has been an extensive critique of platform urbanism and neoliberalization of urban governance, much less has been said about the workings of aesthetic forms of power enacted in the sensorial corporeal grafts of urban digital embodiment. And this is the gap our research and our forthcoming book is trying to fill. So let me start with some very basic facts. Instagram has by now in 2020 more than 1 billion users, 12% of the world population, and daily more than 95 million posts are uploaded. And in recent years, the sharing of images of urban environments on social media has become pervasive, radically transforming the ways we represent and experience urban places. So for the next 19 minutes, I want to basically think about this. And I would like to focus on the ways in which social media platform Instagram has impacted on an area in London earmarked for cultural redevelopment, the so-called Culture Mile, which was unveiled in 2017 and described as one of Europe's largest cultural capital projects. And by focusing on the everyday routines of Instagramming and analyzing the social media campaigns by a placemaking organization in charge of the Culture Mile, I want to analyze how new processes of urban regeneration are emerging that deeply changed the nature of urban planning and how we experience the city. And if you look at the map, those that are familiar with London, you can see that it encompasses the northwest corner of London's historic city from Farringdon to Moorgate. So you see in the bottom St. Paul's Cathedral, and the idea is to create a cultural corridor from the Tate Modern, St. Paul's Cathedral, and then up to the blue area, to the Barbican, and where the Museum of London will be also located. So it's a very mixed area with a lot of different architectural styles. It also still has Britain's oldest and largest still operating wholesale meat market, housed in a Grand Victorian building. However, because the area is close to the financial centre of London, it has not been an obvious destination for London's tourists. So it is important to highlight that so far, none of the building work has yet happened for the regeneration, although planning applications have been submitted. There are activities, so-called placemaking activities happening through the Culture Mile organization. So I will discuss the project's branding campaign on Instagram, but also what I want to do now is really discuss how Instagram is changing the way urban regeneration works, and how it needs to be thought more and more as a form of anticipatory urbanism. So you can see some images of Smith, of the area of the Culture Mile and Smithfield Market, very diverse area. And I want to make basically 2 points in this talk. I want to think about how Instagram has transformed urban regeneration, as I just said, but also how it transformed the ways we engage and experience urban environments. And I want to think about 2 key issues, how this, Instagramming is part of this anticipatory urbanism, and how it creates a dramatic urban aesthetic. So let's start then with Instagram place branding and anticipatory urbanism. Since the launch of the Culture Mile in 2017, the media has reported that a major destination is planned to deliver new experiences for everyone. So it is a typical form of regeneration where the area at the moment is presented in the media in a negative way, as very as unattractive and in need for regeneration. And this unattractive present needs to be enacted by a particular version of the future, proffered by the Culture Mile. And Ben Anderson calls this anticipatory urbanism. And he argues that there are 3 key practices involved in this form of anticipatory urbanism. He says that what basically happens is that to experience possible futures in the present, we need to make this future happen by constantly thinking, preparing the ground for the future through practices of calculation, which refers to the number of calculable numbers to provide certainty. For example, the expectation is that the Culture Mile will add £4 billion per year to the output of the city and generate 50,000 jobs. Anderson also says we need practices of imagination, where making the future present becomes a question of creating affectively imbued representations that move and mobilize. And lastly, he says that there need to be practices of performing the future that draw on embodied performances and make the future present experientially. And I want to focus on these last 2 practices in particular in relation to Instagram. And you can see in the images a few of the events that are happening to prepare the area, events that the placemaking organization, the Culture Mile, is developing, mainly based on art, pop-up events. So place branding is brands are interpretative and aesthetic constructs working on an affective level and forging particular emotional and experiential associations with a place. And place branding, as we know, has become part of a widespread urban governance strategy to manage experiences and perceptions of place. So what I want to now then look at is how the image of the neighborhood is crucial in branding and therefore is also used by Instagram to create a new aesthetic imaginary of the neighborhood. And as Manovic says here, if Google is an information retrieval service, Twitter is for news, and LinkedIn, no, and Facebook is for social communication. Instagram is for aesthetic visual communication. So Instagram reveals something about the user's embodied point of view in place and their perception of places. The aesthetic sensibility as they choreograph certain images and choose certain views over others. Furthermore, the structure of Instagram, like other social media, enhances connections with other users using hashtags. And this interactive nature of social media has transformed branding communication into a two-way process in which companies and customers enter into dialogue. So this has moved urban inhabitants from just being the target of place branding and marketing efforts to become also the producers. So we argue that another thing that is happening with digital platforms is that once place branding moves onto social media, it becomes embedded into a wider set of communicative processes, and it moves into many people's everyday experiencing of everyday urban life. And users of space and collaborate or enrolled into branding processes, but also pose to capture their own experiences of place. And as you can see in that quote that I won't read out due to time, marketing managers of the Culture Mile are very aware of that. So we call this kind of embodied experience of space through Instagram as creating a dramatic new urban aesthetic. And we call it dramatic because increasingly social media can be understood as an immediate intervention into ongoing experiences. So while some posts feature historical information about the area or graphics advertising events, most of the Culture Mile posts feature images of events, installations, or exhibitions hosted by the Culture Mile. And in the moment experiences are central in the Culture Mile engagement of audiences. So culture serves very much as a catalyst to conceive new interpretive grids by producing and mediating new sensations of place that influence the lived experience of space. And increasingly, these activities are conceived and curated in the physical urban space as moments that can be captured by a phone to be posted online, such as you can see though in these images, the around the art installation, where they put these figures around the neighborhood. So I'll quickly finish now by just comparing this official branding with how people experience, normal people, visitors, tourists, residents, the area. So we interviewed 200 people in the area 2 years ago. And as you can see in the picture here, in the graph, and also in the quote, it's a very mixed area that's already very lively. It has nightclubs, a market that operates at nights, a creative arts sector, etc. So, you know, a vibrant area, and it's experienced as such. It, like they say here in the quote, it just feels it's got that little edge to it, which is interesting. It's a 24-hour city area. However, if you compare the media posts of the two Instagram images, Instagram hashtags, I mean, Culture Mile and Smithfield Market, very different kind of images come up. And in the pictures, the bigger the image, the more images of that kind there are. So you can see how different they actually are. So what we found out is that the Culture Mile posts were all focusing on events, and very much in the same way that the Culture Mile is trying to brand itself, whereas the Smithfield Market images focus much more on the materiality, on food, meat, architecture of the neighborhood. So we can really see in a way that Instagram is recalibrating lived urban experiences by attuning our realms of urban perception towards dramatic aesthetic moments, snapping a performance, pausing on something gorgeous on your Insta feed. And such moments are staged, time limited, and exciting. And they feel designed and intensified, and to feel like exceptional interventions in the everyday experience of time and space. And just then to finish, I really want to draw a few quick conclusions. So I talked about how branding and placemaking operates as a distributed practice in the age of social media. But what my longer talk shows that I haven't fully developed yet is that there's a tendency to design and curate now the physical environment with their Instagrammability in mind by city councils, etc. And that creates this kind of what we call dramatic urban aesthetic, which is staged, sensorially intense, and time limited. But the question, of course, is that it changes not only the urban environment, but huge corporations such as Facebook, who own Instagram, change the way how we perceive and experience the city as snapshots, moments. And the digital is really reconfiguring completely how we now experience the urban aesthetic. So the dramatic new urban aesthetic is mediated by the biggest social media platform, and it has become now pervasive. And I'll finish with that. Thank you.
Okay, I'm putting my camera on again. Thank you very much, Monica, for your speech. We have some time for feedbacks and reactions. So I would like now to, there is a very short time lag with the YouTube streaming, so we'll have to wait maybe a little until the questions of our assistants are coming into the chat. I would like maybe to start with my question, and this is like, to what extent the agency of platforms like Instagram could consider to be neutral in terms of the power of representation that different social groups can have over place. We already heard, for example, we have already read some literature about other forms of like socializing the urban image and the urban commons. For example, in Airbnb, we know now, because of a lot of research, that the image of home and the projection of neighborhood that is done by platforms is not neutral at all. There is a very clear agency there by the platforms in promoting certain images over others, which has a very important consequence in terms of let's say owning practices and also accompanying gentrification processes. It might seem that with social media there is not such like big role of the platform itself in promoting certain groups over others in terms of the power they have to represent the places. But I don't know if there is any research done also in this sense. For example, in the usual conflict which we could banalize as a conflict between visitors, the visitor class, the resident class, etc. We are not talking about an area of London where you have a vulnerable population, of course, but again, what is the power of the locals in that case to promote a certain image that is akin to their own ambition of place users on a stable basis?
Yeah, two things. So things I couldn't. Audience is 18 to 35-year-olds. So the events of the Culture Mile are very much focused on these kind of users of space, also hipsters, of course, and there's been a few articles on how Instagram promotes gentrification of areas, of course, because it is marketed, you know, to a specific and audience with a certain expendable income as well. And secondly, what's in the book is who is left out in the imaginary of this Instagram city. And not surprisingly, but the area actually has a lot of vulnerable groups living there in housing estates, etc. It's a very mixed residential area, although people know. And yeah, they are almost current that kind of Instagramification of the area for the future. So creates, you know, a lot of relation. But then also Instagram itself is an aesthetic medium. It's
Monica, can you hear me? Monica, you got frozen. Hey, Monica, we lost we lost you for a minute.
Oh, okay, sorry. Okay. Yeah, no. In itself, Instagram creates a certain aesthetic itself in the city because city councils, etc., are redeveloping from Chicago to Barcelona and London, increasingly redeveloping the tourist areas of the city with Instagram in mind, thinking about what public art will be, you know, snapped, or what kind of events are worth, as Instagram moments, etc. So there's a even further move away from social welfare issues to a real aesthetic concern of what the city looks like.
Thank you very much, Monica. I have a couple of questions from the audience. I'm keeping my camera closed because it's
Should
taking
I close my camera?
Sorry? Maybe.
Close the camera.
Maybe. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so I have a question from Itri. Itri Atai is one of our doctoral students. Actually, all the questions come from our doctoral students, fortunately. Itri is asking whether we could call Instagram a tool to simplify urban environments. And he's quoting James Scott stating that the city laid out according to a simple, repetitive logic will be easier to administer.
Oh, very interesting question, actually. I don't know if simplifying is the right word, but I definitely even more of a tendency to homogenizing what cities look like. As you know, I mean, I need to look more into that, but this kind of place making has become a huge business, and there's like 5 companies involved in that, globally, and there are very similar ways across the globe.
Okay, thank you, Monica. Another question from Alejandro Gonzalez, and he's asking whether in the study you have just introduced, did you differentiate between different urban users, like tourists and locals, and more intersectionalities like the young?
So we haven't had, we haven't differentiated. We just took we took 300 posts from each hashtag. So the Culture Mile hashtag and the Smithfield hashtag. Smithfield is more of the local hashtag, let's call it. So we differentiated between those two. And the Culture Mile is all the place branding kind of hashtag, let's say. And we've used the posts from individual users, so not from the Culture Mile organization. We haven't differentiated between we can't. We don't know if people are visitors or Londoners or etc. in a cosmopolitan city like London. But like I said, most users are between 18 to 35, which again throws up the question, who is left out in this urban imaginary then, and who is part of it?
Thank you, Monica. I will have another question for you. Yeah, there are two more questions. Let's see if we can make it in a couple of minutes. From Jonathan Orama, his question is, do you think that this difference in perception will poorly affect analysis of social media to take a profit in tourism, or both perceptions will merge in time? I think he was referring to one of your statements.
I lost you a bit, Paolo. Can you repeat?
Yes, sorry. Jonathan Orama is asking, I think he's referring to one of the statements that you made before during your speech, whether the difference in perception will poorly affect analysis of social media to take a profit in tourism, or both perceptions will merge with time.
I don't know if I fully understand.
No, me neither.
So basically, what I would say is that you all know it better probably than me. Instagram is changing constantly. So by now they have advertising within their feeds, of course. So I think it is becoming much more of a than ever before, and it will probably increase. So I think the way it's used at the moment, and there's some a great paper on Amsterdam, and I don't know how to pronounce the names of the authors, but if you put Amsterdam in Google, and Instagram in Google, then you'll find it. They basically show how the perception of Instagram really changes areas of Amsterdam in terms of people going to certain restaurants, going to certain areas, and leading to a gentrification, increase of house prices, at rents, etc., because places become so popular through Instagram.
Okay, thank you, Monica. I have one last question from Joseph Cheer, who is another of our keynote speakers. And it's a very interesting question also for the type of stuff that we are doing currently now in terms of research. He is asking whether linked to digital mediatization is smart tourism, often seen as a panacea for the problems of urban tourism. And he wonders what your thoughts are on this.
Okay, so link of smart with Instagram.
Yeah.
Right. I haven't thought about this enough yet. I think smart is one of these buzzwords increasingly. And I think each city is understanding smart tourism slightly different and how it fits to their model of governance, etc. I think definitely that there is a link, but I'd be happy for him to talk about that more in his presentation and to help me to think through it. Let's put it that way. Yeah, I need to think more about this.
Thank you, Monica. So we all thank you for your keynote, and we are now ready to go ahead with the rest of the paper presentations of this morning session. So we'll have 5 presentations. Maria Eugenia Altamirano from our group of doctoral students at Rovira Virgili University, and Willem den Hoed from the University of Strathclyde. The group of authors, Narcís Bassols, Antonio Domènech, Isabel Paulino from our doctoral students program and the University of Girona. Pedret, Alberta Arias-Sans, and Xavier Suñol from the Barcelona City Council, and Lorena Beier working with Salvador Anton and Hernan Vigier for Provincial Southwestern University of Rovira Virgili University. So I'm asking all the presentation in this session to make themselves be seen and be ready to upload their PowerPoints and to start with their speech when their moment is coming. So the next one is going to be Maria Eugenia Altamirano. Please, Eugenia, go ahead.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Eugenia, and I'll be sharing my screen now so you can see my presentation. Thank you, Paolo, for the introduction, and Monica also for your presentation. Is it sharing? Paolo is running?
It's working, yes, thank you.
All right. So today I'm going to be presenting some partial results from my PhD thesis. I'm doing the program of leisure and tourism here in Universitat Rovira i Virgili, and I'll be talking about my case study in tourist favela Santa Marta. Okay, so I'll be talking about slum tourism. This is a kind of mobility where tourists visit an impoverished area or neighborhood when they travel to an urban destination. It started in the early 90s in South Africa and then replicated to other cities in the global south, like Brazil. In Rio de Janeiro, favela tourism started in 1992 in Favela da Rocinha, and it quickly moved forward to other favelas in the city. There are over 700 favelas in Rio de Janeiro only, and they are and the most attractive ones are those located in the hills or morro in the southern and richer area of Rio de Janeiro. Favelas, spaces, and the dwellers carry a long record of political neglection and social stigma, but it is also the breeding ground for mainstream and very popular Brazilian traditions like samba, capoeira, and feijoada. Slum tourism is being researched in the past for over 30 years and from many fields and perspectives, and covers mainly the system of production and reproductions of slums, images and representations, and how they travel to the global arena. There's also a very large moral debate regarding the ethics of this practice because of the asymmetries between hosts and guests. But instead of going after only symbolic meanings and ethics, I will instead focus on relations between humans and non-humans, and how different materials sustain and enable these relations. This is ultimately to analyze the political effects of tourism on people and places. So my main question to answer is going to be, which is the role of tourist practices and performances in legitimizing and transforming slum communities at a physical, symbolic, and social scale? For this, I'm going to be using a combined framework. First, the epistemologies of assemblage theory. This brings this relational approach to the study. And under this scope, slum tourism destinations, favelas in this case, are produced by assembling multiple actors. These are people, institutions, events, objects, discourses, and technologies, and how they connect and disconnect from one another to constantly create multiple realities. As I will show in the case study, tourists become co-producers of this reality as they walk, purchase, do sightseeing, take pictures, sharing in social media as well, like Monica was talking about, and also talk with residents during favela tours. They trigger networks in which favela dwellers, their spaces and cultural elements can be resignified and transformed. And to recreate these networks or assemblages, I will use actor network theory tools and methods to follow the actors and to analyze their real and potential relations and their material outcome. I did a 6-month field study in Rio de Janeiro, especially in favela Santa Marta, where I took participant observation of 17 tours, and I did several interviews to local actors and also informal conversations. Let me introduce you to Santa Marta. This is a small favela of around $6,000 located in Botafogo. This is an upper middle class neighborhood in the southern area of Rio. And it's also known as favela modelo or model favela because of the many interventions that had mainly in the past from both private and public sector. This is because it's relatively small size, location, and also for their very proactive leadership. So let's play that we are tourists, and you are going to meet your guide at Corumbá Square. This is at the entrance of the community at the tourist information booth, and from there you will start the tour. To show you how the tour will be like, the itinerary that I'll be analyzing after, I'm going to use this video. So this is a promotional video from a tour agency in Rio de Janeiro. It was made in 2016. And here you can see Praça Cantao. This is the main square of the community and main public space as well. All these painted houses were painted with the Coral Tintas project. This is a Dutch-Brazilian painting company. And they were also responsible for all the murals and the painted houses from the picture you saw before. So tourists take the tramway, or bondinho, as people in Santa Marta call it. This is the main and most, the only and the main means of transport in Santa Marta. It was made by the Public Work Company in 2008. And tourism was also a motivation to do it in Santa Marta because they have one of the best views of the city. They put 2 viewpoints, one in the 3rd station and one in the 5th station, at the top of the community, where tourists take their pictures and see an overview of the community and the city. This is the Michael Jackson space, also made by the Public Work Company in 2010. This is like the summit of the tour. Most tourists come to see where Michael Jackson filmed his video for They Don't Care About Us in 1996. And it became immortalized with this bronze statue made by a Brazilian artist. You can also see the contrast of the favela and the rest of the city. Here, also at the top of the hill, is the first pacification police unit. This is a police force created in 2009 by the government to erase armed traffic from the favelas. On the outside, you have Coral Tintas murals that the residents, a local artist made as well. And here, very important, it's a plaque for tourists to show where they are. This is a pacification police unit, and also the very important direction, well, it's up there, for tourists not to take pictures to residents. These plaques no longer exist, but they were made in 2010 with the community-based tourism project. So here is the view. As you can see, the view is protected by UNESCO under the tag of the mountain and sea urban landscape. So this video was made at a time where favela tourism was included as a official tourist attraction in the city during sports mega events. I made this timeline to kind of put forward the actors that are the main actors that are interplaying and making tourism possible in Santa Marta. So first we have Michael Jackson filming his video and putting Santa Marta in the global system of images, also creating motivation for tourists and a sense of belonging and pride to the residents. In 2007, Brazil was elected to host a series of sports mega events. This brought an investment euphoria, both from public companies and private sector. So there were many public policies implemented mostly in communities of urban renovations and economic plans as well. But the most important of all is the pacification police unit that had Santa Marta as a pilot community, because it made possible for tourists to actually walk around kind of safely in favelas, and also brought other projects like Rio Top Tour project from the state government from 2010 and 2012, with the help of agencies like Sebrae. This is a private company that brings entrepreneurial help for people. They train douleurs as tour guides and entrepreneurs, and this is when tourism really started to happen formally in Santa Marta, and never stopped since. This also brought public companies like Coral Tintas, like I was saying, that the marketing department from the company chose favelas for this project, for representing Brazilian traditions, and for the visibility that they were bringing during this whole mega events era, because of tourists were curious and interested to see what a favela was like, because they are so, that you can see it from afar, from every point of the city. So in 2013, the 17 tour guides, official tour guides that came after the Rio Top Tour project founded Contour, that this is a committee to maintain community-based tourism in the community. After 2016, when the last event happened in Brazil, all these helps and programs were over, basically. But and also favelas were excluded from the official tourist attraction offer. But still, tour guides are resilient and still bring tourists almost every day until last year, at least, before COVID. So I took one of the tours that I did observation in, the tour without thrills, I call it, because, and they call it as well, people in Santa Marta, because they don't visit the open air drug markets. But still, it's useful to, for me, it was useful to build this network diagram. I wanted to see graphically how all these actors were coming together to create Santa Marta as a tourist space, but also how they empowered some actors. So what is interesting about this is that we can see here in light blue the international actors that are interplaying, also in red, the national public sector. And from here we can take one actor, whichever we want, and start tracing back the network. So if we take the events foster the state government to create new tourist attractions for all these tourists that were coming for the events. And this motivated the development of Rio Top Tour project that had several very important outcomes. One of the most important for me, I think, is the tour guides. They emerged as a new social cluster that is working as a link for other institutions that are not necessarily related with tourism, like Insolar company. This is a social project that aim to put solar panels in public places like the Bondino and the Residents Association. And tour guides are, some of the tour guides at least, are the ambassadors and organizers for this project. They materialize their power when they put the tourist information boost, that is where they meet their tourists.
Eugenia, excuse me to interrupt. You have like 1 minute to finish.
Yeah, I'm
over your time. Okay.
Thank you. And they did it with the help of Coral Tintas, Rio Top Tour Project, Insolar, and also with the permission of the state government. And like that, we can recreate several relations. What is important about this is that Santa Marta's douleurs find their way to be there in the map again by global, with the help of global actors. This, for instance, is instant capture from Google Maps. Santa Marta is one of the few favelas that has all their streets, or at least some of them on the map. So as a few final takeaways, I can say with my study so far that Santa Marta went from being culturally invisibilized and left out of formal politics to take part in public budgets and to represent Brazilian traditions. Also, like I was saying, that global actors play a role in making available an avenue for Santa Marta to resignify their elements and to make visible some of their issues. Also, that local actors acquire political power through their relations with tourists, and that this overall this methodology and approach works to analyze these controversial and complex issues. So thank you very much, and questions will be very much welcome.
Thank you, Eugenia, for your very interesting presentation. We have stretched a little bit over the time for you. So if there is any question in the chat, I will take one question. I don't see that coming from the chat, but actually, as usual, it's because we have this little delay in the YouTube streaming. So we'll be waiting for 1 minute or so. And in the meantime, I wish you luck with the couple of papers that you are publishing out of this material, and me being your supervisor, I would be very happy if that happens. There is one question from Mateusz Kuczka. Are there any positive consequences for local people resulting from tourism?
Well, yes, like I was explaining, it is a mean for local doulas to actually tell their story and to make issues from the favela being heard, besides formal politics and formal also media. Because if you listen to what the media has to say for favela, is that it's only a dangerous and low-cultured place. But this is not the truth. This is also people that work, people that have struggles, people that suffer from inequalities, and they find a way to talk about this during the tours. So I think this is the most important outcome that tourism has.
Okay, thank you, Eugenia. There are other questions flowing into the chat, but some of these are really similar to the first one that has been done. We don't have time for that, so we are going. These are mostly your colleagues from the PhD program, so they can be in touch with you later for making the questions. And I am now giving the word to the second speaker of today. It's my pleasure to introduce Wilbert den Hoed, who is a brilliant young researcher affiliated to the University of Strathclyde, and hopefully in the near future also coming to work with us, because he's done a fantastic Marie Curie application, and we are all waiting for the result to be positive, hopefully. So Wilbert, please take the word, open your mic, and share your presentation with us.
Yeah, hi, good morning, everyone, and thank you, Paolo, for the kind introduction. Yeah, as Paolo said, I'm working as a European Policies Research Center as a postdoc researcher at the moment. The center is based at both Strathclyde University in Glasgow and Delft University of Technology in the Netherlands. It's really a pleasure for me to speak to you today, albeit virtually, unfortunately. Please let me start by making a small apology. I'm not going to present you with a great number of slides today. This has two reasons. First, the background and details of what I'm going to present are available in a journal article published earlier this year. And the second reason is maybe an obvious one, is that since the research and the writing of the article, the situation in the world has become rather different, as you all will know. So I will share my thoughts about the events and developments from the past months, sort of on the go, as I've been working on them very recently. And I will use, of course, some of the arguments of the paper still. And for that, I do have some slides, so don't worry if you're looking out for them. So not so long ago, tourism geographers were looking for ways to curb tourism and mobility in cities and regions, and to provide a clear picture of the positive and negative external effects of tourism on our territories. We were critical about the role of tourism and mobility in the climate emergency and about the social and spatial exclusion processes they bring along. These social and environmental pressures are not gone. In
But
many
excuse me if I
places.
interrupt you. We don't see the PowerPoint. So have you already shared it or?
Not yet, sorry.
Okay.
In 2 minutes.
So go ahead.
You can't wait for it, I imagine. So the social and environmental pressures that we've seen pre-COVID are not gone. In many places, businesses and policymakers are seeing tourism as a quick way to recover from economic damages. And where restrictions were temporarily lifted, mass international travel resumed. In the meantime, national governments have supported airports and airline companies to limit their losses. And in cities, the widening social spatial disparities from the past decades tell us that inequalities will not just disappear from one day to the other or after one disruptive crisis. However, in a way, the closure of tourism in areas that depend on the tourism and hospitality sectors is forcing public, private, and academic actors to rethink their approach to attracting visitors into a more resilient and sustainable way. On the one hand, there is some consensus that tourism will bounce back as an economic market. But on the other hand, tourism scholars argue that this recovery phase is an opportune moment for substantial, meaningful, and positive transformation. And for me, this is an opportune moment to start sharing my slides, which is here. I hope you can see them on full screen. Yeah. So this paper has gradually become a thought piece based on different degrees of standstill of large-scale tourism movements. Plus, I would like to reflect on the fact that mobility itself has become a way for a virus to spread. Mobility and physical presence became direct health threats instead of a tool or an asset for people to move for functional or leisurely reasons. So does this mean we are now presented with a blank slate on which to project better forms of tourism? And as research has been getting a grip on the meaning of slow mobility or immobility, can we extend this into forms of tourism that entail slower but better travel? So in these times, there is a lot to learn from earlier work by mobilities researchers on stillness, isolation, and waiting. Slow mobility and stillness are not new concepts, in attempts to reduce road traffic, pollution, or improve urban attractiveness, these phenomena have been examined as possible solutions. Stillness occurs in mobility alongside movement and may be a source of reflection and new ideas, as previous research has shown. Slower paces are thought to be more inclusive and could make mobility more susceptible to well-being and creative thinking provided by the urban and natural environment. At the same time, immobility has been a reality for many societal groups, as hypermobility, on the other hand, has been for a very select group of people. David Bissell in 2007 reminded us that slowness has been long neglected as a frequent and often inevitable experience, part of the mobile everyday life. And Strahan and colleagues discuss stuckness as a specific form of immobilized waiting, emphasizing the gendered relational dimensions of waiting in a labor context. And in a recent article, Zuev and Hanam connect this form of immobility to the social experience of being in lockdown. So with this precarious situation in mind, I was thinking where my research on the convergence between everyday mobility and tourism from before the pandemic could be relevant. In the current situation, we see a dramatic drop in international tourism while cities change their focus to the quality of life of citizens, aside from addressing urgent health issues, of course. Some cities are better placed than others to handle the impact of COVID on tourism. And some other cities have accelerated the plans they already had to make the city greener, more sustainable, and less reliant on motorized private travel. The surge of global interest in concepts like the 15-minute city and Barcelona Super IAS are just underlining this. So, however, tourism and everyday mobility are having a bit of a complex relationship. In traditional terms, tourism is presented as an escape from daily life, located at places we don't normally visit, outside of what constitutes everyday mobility. As Franklin and Crank put it, tourism studies have often privileged the exotic and strange, and speak of dramatic contrast between visitors and locals. Responding to problematic pressures on urban tourist centers and mobility systems, some scholars have explored the possibility of tourism nearer the home. De-exoticizing tourism led to the exploration of tourist activity performed by people from within the region, people who visit tourist cities for professional reasons, and the introduction of slow tourism and proximity tourism, among other concepts. More proximate alternatives in tourism could enhance our insight in how to reduce carbon footprints, local tourist divides, and the perceived unattractiveness of the own region. And as a last point about the relationship between tourism and the everyday, daily life at a destination in itself can be a phenomenon that's attractive to tourists. So against this complex and really changing dynamic background, this paper provides an empirical example of tourism closer to home, recognizing the value of seeing tourism as part of other mobilities. I did this study based on 3 conceptual observations. First, the focus on everyday journeys transformed really the pivot of tourism studies. Instead of a sole means to reach a destination, transport is a contextual tourism element that is relational to the life course of people, full of its everyday obligations, social responsibilities, and based on a diverse set of mobile experiences. Second, the study of tourist experiences is often wedded to motorized forms of transport that operate outside of the public domain. Besides their spatial and environmental imprints, the presumption that they are widely available to all is wrong. Even before COVID times, car ownership figures and social characteristics of air travelers show that these forms are more accessible to some groups than others. And third, mobility scholarship and geographies of aging have opened up new ways to engage with the mobile experiences of various population groups. For social, demographic, and economic reasons, older people are an increasingly considered segment in tourism and mobility. As a population group, they are more wealthy and healthy than ever, but also their motivations and experiences of travel are increasingly heterogeneous, as this quote at the bottom shows. So the original aim of this paper was to consider the role of active mobility among older people. And its contribution to age friendliness and more proximate forms of tourism. I've used both mobile and biographical methods to study tourist and recreational activities closer to home and as part of everyday life. On this slide, you can see a quick graphical display of the methods used to link aging processes and the life course, everyday mobility and mobile experiences, as they happened in the lives of older people in their cities of residence. From two contrasting mobility environments, Newcastle upon Tyne in the UK and Rotterdam in the Netherlands, I want to make a few quick illustrations of the potential of integrating tourism in everyday mobility patterns. In the exploratory analysis of tracked mobility patterns, biographical information and video data too, I found that proximate tourism experiences converging with everyday mobilities in both spatial and temporal ways. Through the narratives of older cyclists who traverse the city for a variety of interconnected mobilities, also using other forms of transport, we see that daily mobility in itself contains elements of tourism that often remain overlooked or uncategorized in the literature. There are three core elements to this, which I discuss very briefly, and which corresponds with the core themes of this research. The first is local mobility and recreation. People who started cycling or went on to cycle more frequently reconnected or connected to their neighborhood and city. Values of recreation and well-being often became part of local mobility patterns, as they took place between functional and spontaneous local trips and encounters. This brings me to the second theme. Tourism elements and well-being are within functional journeys. Commutes, local visits, active travel itself were acting as springboards for tourism closer to home. Relaxation, reduction of stress levels, the ability to switch off, often seen as the purpose for recreation, also appeared in functional rides, such as the work commute. Participants in both cities frequently passed through areas of local heritage or natural parks, moors, woodlands. I've grouped a few of them on this slide. The choice to pass through green areas is purposeful, but also sometimes motivated by a lack of safe cycle infrastructure on more direct roads. Participants willingly gave up the directness of these routes for a slower option, and in doing so, they relied on the embodied experience of active mobility, as they have accumulated this over the life course, relying on the transport environment and different social and material factors. So, in conclusion, running really quickly through the paper and highlighting a few important points, the findings provide insight in the convergence of tourism and everyday mobilities, underlining the growing importance of slower and more age-friendly approaches to tourism. tourism mobilities can be in proximity to the fabric of everyday life and occur within rather than away from the spatial and temporal arrangements of everyday obligations. Urban areas and fringes can be a source of meaningful recreation without being a predefined trip purpose in itself. Local attractions can unlock potential volumes of people that are already there. Urban cycling was found to have important qualities for this: flexibility, stop-starting, the relatively slow speed, and the sensory appeal to visit these locations sort of on the go. And this opens up various opportunities for more than functional activities at a local scale. As the quality of life increasingly needs to come from places nearby in these times especially, slower forms of everyday mobility may contain diverse, meaningful and lasting well-being experiences to both the individual and the destination. This raises fundamental questions for urban and tourism planning and policy. But I think since my time is up now, I want to leave it there and maybe discuss these with the panel and the audience. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Wilbert. As usual, very interesting presentation. And I am now looking at the chat. There was a question from Itri about the relation between the mobility and the pandemic itself. So whether mobility implies that you have said that mobility is one of the main reasons behind the pandemic. If you want to comment on that.
Yeah, this is not something that I've written in the paper, more an ongoing thought. But yeah, clearly only limiting to the field of tourism, this has touching upon the very core of what tourism is, or perceived to be for a long period of time, which is visiting places other than where you are currently, usually involving long haul mobility. So yeah, I couldn't agree more on this link between mobility and the pandemic itself. And clearly thinking towards the future, after today or after the pandemic, this will be maybe have to be tied into what how we conceptualize tourism as maybe something that can be already performed in places near us, and for looking from the destination perspective, potential tourist visitors maybe already there close by, instead of in different segments over different parts of the world.
Thank you, Wilbert. I have one question in the chat from Tiago Alves from Universidade de São Paulo, Brazil, who is asking whether you feel these arguments valid for tourism demand from emerging countries. Do you believe that people who are recent travelers would be sensible for slow tourism and proximity?
Yeah, very good question. Complicated a little bit. I suppose it's again more of about the way in which we conceptualize and imagine what tourism is. Do emerging, well, as you said in the chat, recent travelers, what are their aspirations when thinking about tourism? Is it ticking the boxes, the bucket list of certain places throughout the world? Or is it really striving for more maybe lasting things like relaxation, or just being out and about, but not necessarily in this predefined long distance travel that encompasses all of the world, or all of the world very frequently, as more and more people have done over the last decades, visiting many different parts very far away multiple times of the year, as that has already also become increasingly available to a limited group, but more and more people throughout the world. I hope that answers.
Gilbert, I
yeah.
have one last question from our keynote from Monica, who says, she says, congratulations for the presentation. And she loved the focus on embodiment and the relation between tourism and the fabric of everyday life. What are your thoughts about the importance of people watching, soaking up a public atmosphere, and the lack of it at the moment due to the COVID?
Yeah, that's, I think, again, a very good question, and even a topic in itself worth a presentation. But to have a quick answer to this, it's definitely something that has sort of, left, hopefully temporarily, from the public atmosphere. That also, really defines, or is one of the basic components of this everyday public urban life, at least in the more central, busy parts of the city, that are now obviously places that are maybe to be avoided, at least in some places where the pandemic is peaking at the moment. So yeah, there's a lack of that at the moment, but also something that I imagine will be restored pretty quickly after COVID, whenever that will be.
Yeah, this, I would say, has a very interesting connection to one of the big concepts that we are used to work with, which is the concept of tourist gaze. And we are now in the moment of the absence of a tourist gaze. And what does that imply for the transformation of places and tourist places? It's going to be something that I think that will make sense in the near future. Okay, so thank you, Wilbert, very much for your presentation, and we go on to the next speaker with the group of Isabel Paulino, that I think is in the chat, and she will be the one presenting together with Narcís Bassols and Tony Domènech. Isa, I understand that you are here in the faculty also.
Yes.
Somewhere. Okay. Okay, Isabella is recently also Narcís is here. Okay, and Tony, they are all here around. So Isabella is recently become doctor at the University of Girona this summer, and Narcís will be in 2 weeks, and Tony will be maybe in a couple of months. So we are all like in the verge.
We're like all in the verge of making it.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So please.
So thank you everybody for joining. We say hello to to anyone, especially to the ones connecting from far away across time zones. I see Professor Joseph Cheer. The time for him must be quite late or early. Anyhow, we are going to, myself, my colleague, and my 2 colleagues, we are going to I don't know if I can share my screen. Okay, there we are. Okay, do you see my screen now?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, I see it.
Yes, and the rest of it, Paulo?
Yes, works well.
Well, we are going to talk about tourist mobility inside the destination, mainly about picking the local tours offer versus the consumption of the tourists. Okay, so the study case is, oh, sorry, there we go. That's the let's make some short initial considerations. The first one is that in tourist cities, there's normally a consistent offer of guided tours. And this makes local guides into prescriptors. Okay, so the local guides are knowledgeable of the place, and they have a certain power on the mobility of the demand. This is what we are going to research. Of course, there are many free visits outside of guided tours. With the rise of the e-worm and the influencers in the internet, there are many people who take just free tours on themselves in many destinations. However, there's a lack of research on differences between the private tour offer and the tourist visitation patterns. So there's actually a lack of research on prescription power. So how is the offer actually influencing the mobility of the demand? Okay, so a research question, very tentative here, could be whether tourist visitation patterns fall together with the offer of the local tourist industry. The usefulness of this research could be to check on missing business opportunities, to spot crowded areas or overcrowded areas, to unlock the potential of some others, and finally for urban transportation planning. A quick overview of the literature review. The question of tourists' mobility and behavior in destinations has been widely studied and from many points of view. More from the tourist and planning literature, we see that the factors affecting tourists' behavior in a destination can be summed up in these few bullet points. One is the mobility is affected by the renowned attractions. Okay, the more iconicity has an attraction, the more people will attract. There's then the distance decay, which has been also researched by several scientists. There's the first versus repeat visitors. This has been an old favorite in this type of mobility research in destinations. So first visitors are supposed to have certain patterns of movement versus the repeat ones. There's the length of stay influencing also the going off the beaten track of the visitors. There's also the personality question or the segmentation, if you want. So psychocentric tourists versus allocentric globetrotters, backpackers, and their respective mobility patterns in a destination. There's then some research line talking about previously gathered information by visitors. Okay, so this research line says that the more information somebody has gathered, the farther away in the destination he or she ventures out. Okay, so and there are, of course, then other factors. So we have many factors here, perhaps too many, and the proposal here is to recheck the visitation patterns. Okay, so how we do that? By pictures taken by tourists who we think show the consumer point of view of the destination. And this connects with some of the previous presentations, especially with Monica's presentation on the Instagrammability. However, we apply that to mobility and not exactly to image perception. So that's our study case. Since we were lacking a study case, here you have one. That's the city of Cartagena de Indias in Colombia. So you see below right, you see South America and Colombia located on it. And on the left-hand side, you see Cartagena located inside Colombia. Okay, it's on the Caribbean Sea. And it's actually quite a multifaceted place in the sense that it boasts sun and sand. It's got colonial architecture. This colonial architecture is the UNESCO mark. And lately, intangible traditions are emerging. So this gives for a very interesting case of mobility studies in such a relatively small destination with many different types of attractions. Okay. The two different types of attractions, you've got it here in black letters. That's Boca Grande beach area. And then there's also the historic center. And for the methodology and fieldwork, I would like to give over the word to my colleague, Isabel.
Yes, thank you, Narcís. I will continue here. So in regard to methodology and fieldwork, the first task was to collect the data in regard to tours offered by the local tours, and also in regard to visitation patterns. concerning the offer, we started to know which tours were offered in the city and which attractions places included. After detecting 82 tours from 104 different sites, we started the task of mapping the tours and the sites. Then concerning the consumer side, we discarded popular methods for collecting data such as travel diaries, surveys, and opinion polls, and GPS tracking devices for being time consuming. Also innovative methods such as destination cards, Bluetooth sensors, geolocating mobile users by cell tower connection have other limitations. And on the other hand, the new way of enjoying travel patterns by searching information gave us the advantage to follow the tourist digital footprint. So share photos through popular social media sites such as Flickr are an important source of big data to study tourist behavior. Moreover, pictures taken by tourists reflect the tourist point of view of the destination, discarding those in between spaces from one attraction to the other, which is not interesting for tourists, but tracking techniques would collect. So then what we did is downloading the Flickr pictures using the Flickr metadata downloader. We filtered the pictures in regard to accuracy level, taking the pictures only with an accuracy of a street level. We classified the photographer's profile into tourists, one-day visitors or residents, and also into first-timers and repeaters. Then we selected only the pictures taken by first-timers of both tourists and day visitors, because they are the ones who would consume tour trips. Repeaters tend to have another kind of behavior in the destination. After that, we mapped 20,955 photos from 1,523 users. And finally, we identified the attractions by connecting the pictures to the nearest tourist attraction or site. Okay, and after that, well, Narcís, if you want to continue with the analysis.
Yes, well, we did a twofold comparison here. We had a comparison of spatial distributions.
Oh, sorry, so, Narcís, this I'm so sorry. I will do that. It was my.
Well, if you want to do that, no worry, my dear. Okay,
no, I
go
forgot.
ahead.
Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, in regard to the analysis, it consisted of a comparison of a spatial distribution of attractions, considering the attractions offered versus the attractions consumed. Specifically, we took into account the number of times these sites are offered in the routes versus the number of users taking pictures around attraction points. So this comparison was done through point heat maps and also using street segments heat maps. Then we realized the cluster process using K-medians. This cluster analysis correlated the attractions offered versus the attractions consumed, allowing us to distinguish different groups where consumption of offer consumption and offer of attractions were correlated or not. And then that's all, Narcís. Now it's okay. You can continue with the results.
I guess you are all very impassioned about seeing the results. Here you have our, the results are presented, of course, in form of maps. Here you have the, I don't know if I can, perhaps I can zoom this a bit more. Let me see. Okay, you have here the totals of pictures and attractions per cell. Okay, we worked with cells of about 1 square kilometer, and the attractions size, which are these gray circles, are so the larger they are, the more they are offering the tourist routes, the larger they are represented. So as you can see here, you have this area here, which is this is the most iconic area, where you have many coincidences among offer and demand. Okay, the redder the pixels are, the more demanded the cell. Okay, the area. So, and you have here a lot of demand, and here also. Okay, so this corresponds to a significant extent with current demand, as far as we know in the destination. You see those spots here, which are highly offered and less demanded also here. Okay, so curiously enough, okay, we have only a partial coincidence of offer versus demand. Okay, here we did so also for the streets. Okay, so you have here street patterns, okay, or actually streets in redder or in lighter tones according to the number of pictures per street segment. Okay, again, the attraction sizes are determined by these by the times they were offered in the tours. Okay, so as you can see, this is really only partly overlapping. Okay, so this had us finding 5 different types of clusters. Okay, which is the usefulness of this method. Okay, with different recommendations. Apart from clustering, okay, we had another type of exploring the data, which was with correlation. Okay, we did a correlation matrix, a BCG1. Okay, and as you can see below here in the low area, there are many points, perhaps too many, and here in the high area there are few points, perhaps too few. Okay, which means that if we divide this into 2 halves, you'll see that there are only 15 sites out of 104 which are pushed by the offer. Okay, so all this below here means is demand which is not recognized or pushed by the offer. Okay, so there's quite a huge difference of all that. Okay, so if I may go with that to the discussion and conclusions. Okay, if I answer the research question answer, so you'll agree with me that most sites are, in terms of a BCG matrix, under-consumed and under-supplied. That's 87 out of 104, and the clusters show a very high dispersion. Okay, sorry about the Spanish writing. So there's a very low description power at this prescription power at this particular destination. Okay, that was the main point we were interested in researching. There's an icon-based consumption also, so few icons are overconsumed. That's an icons effect known in many destinations. There are opportunities as well. There are 2 clusters we have identified with the potential, and finally there's oversupply of some attractions, curiously enough. Okay, there's an oversupply of some attractions which are not consumed at all, as you have seen before. So this makes us wondering in future research what we can do with that. So we could do some cross comparison with several destinations. We could find out the reasons of this low interest of oversupplied attractions. We could check some movement patterns with different parameters as seen in the literature, and we could redo the experiment, this time with repeat visitors. Okay, so these were the future research proposals. I know if I'm slightly above my time, but that's all from us.
Thank you very much, Narcís and Isabel. I am now collecting questions in the chat. There is one methodological question that comes from both Itri and Miguel Orden, that has to do with the use of Flickr for this study. Why Flickr and not some other more popular social networks?
Yes, we know that using Flickr only have its limitations. Yeah, it's the users of Flickr and not Instagram. But the API of Flickr was very useful for downloading all the pictures, and also it allows to do the filters we wanted to, because it provides some information about people taking pictures. So we could do these filters of first timers, tourists, and visitors. And other apps, other sources of data didn't allow this. We are conscious that not everybody is using Flickr. We know that this is a limitation, and we didn't have time to say it before, but I can say it now. It's on the paper. It will appear on the paper, this limitation as well.
So there's also another question why we use Flickr. It is that Flickr users actually do take the pictures there. So you have the pictures geolocalized and everything. So we have to do actually with people moving around. These are not just posted images, okay? So in this respect, Flickr is a bit more realistic than other networks, okay? So.
Thank you, Narcís. And I don't think there are other, yeah. I will make a question myself before I give the word to Aina for the next presentation. And it has to do a little bit with the way I see that this work also connects with some of the work that you guys did also in our papers. I think that one of the big issues here is to try to understand not only which specific attractions have been visited, but which groups of attractions and of different nature have been visited by visitors that then have a certain visitation pattern. That so the whole question of like places that are eccentric in relation to the promotional strategies becomes very interesting for me, in the sense of seeing what visiting a central attraction and a peripheral or eccentric attraction together or in the same tour does to the idea that the promotion is not just about promoting one place, but promoting patterns of movements within a city. So using what's in the center, what is most popular and well known, to try to use that to also push people to go off the boundaries and extend their visit in area where, well, visitation means greater benefits for the local population.
That's exactly what actually many times happens. We have seen that in the BCG metrics, many sites are slowly offered, so are undersupplied and underconsumed. Okay, and this is perhaps also a future research for that. Okay, so what happens with these sites? Okay, we have 87 out of 104 sites are underconsumed and undersupplied. So this opens a completely new research scenario, I think, isn't it, Isabel?
Yes. Also, considering what Paulo said, it's true that we don't have the profile of single pattern together. So this in the future research that was why it was there, considering where tourists have stayed overnight. Also will affect the attractions they choose to visit. Maybe if they are only staying just a weekend, don't have time for visiting all, and they just choose some parts of the destination that are closer to the accommodation and also are very interesting. So maybe in the future we will consider also to put this third information into the analysis, filtering also through the accommodation and how it affects. So this also will give offer the opportunity to offer these specific tracks in regard to where tourists are staying overnight.
Okay, thank you very much, Isabel. We are moving on now to the next presenter.
Okay.
Aina Pedret from the city of Barcelona, who is presenting a work that is co-authored with Albert Arias and Xavier Suñol. Please, Aina.
Thank you very much, Paolo, and thank you very much to Pedret and University of Virgili for organizing this workshop and giving us the opportunity to explain our work with the City Council. Now I'm sharing my screen. Can everybody sit? Yeah?
Yes.
Okay. Just a second, full screen. Okay, so today I'm giving this presentation as a part of the team that have been working on this mobility strategy, tourism mobility strategy, but I should say that there is many people working on this complex exercise. And this is my starting point, complexity. Taken individually, mobility and tourism are very complex phenomena, and the city and its urban fabric, it's a complex system. So what we try to do is to understand the relation between them. And we have to bear in mind that Barcelona, for its territorial characteristics, is a very dense city. Its dimensions with just 100 square kilometers and in its population with 1.5 million results in a high population density. So as a dense and compact city, mobility is a very important issue for the city. Now I would like to highlight our initial provisions to help you understand how we approach to tourism and mobility management. The first one is that tourism is an inherent part of the city. Far from being an outside phenomenon, tourism produces the city, and at the same time, city shapes the possibilities for tourism. So today it's clear that tourism is a constituent part of the current urban phenomenon. The second one is that tourism exists as long as there are people move freely from one point to another, occasionally in a time and a place out of the ordinary, and they do so motivated by the search for experiences. So that particularities is what distinguishes tourism from other kind of mobilities that have been much more studied before. Some years ago, the study of mobility was incomplete in excluding the personal mobility and considering just the occupational mobility. And now the study of urban mobility is also incomplete if we don't include the use of tourist mobility. So this is why we carried out this exercise, the tourism mobility strategy. We set out to do a deep and global analysis of tourist mobility in order to design urban policies. The expansion and intensification of tourist mobility required the rethinking, the redesigning, and the management of this particular practice. And we have done so with this strategy. So the purpose of this strategy is to analyze in a very, very exhaustive way the main characteristics of the tourist mobility in order to diagnose the main challenges the Barcelona is facing and design a strategic plan and concrete actions to promote a responsible visit model, which is compatible with daily mobility, which guarantees the rational and coherent use of transport system and the public space in the city. This is I must say that this is an unprecedented exercise in Barcelona and unprecedented exercise in other major European urban destinations. never before a document has detailed global analysis of urban mobility aimed at designing urban policies. And one of the main pieces of information that emerged from this strategy is the volume of visitors. We didn't have this information before, and now we know that Barcelona hosted 23 visitors, or around 23 million visitors per year. But however, it was even more important to know the pressure the city is under by adding the duration of the stays of these visitors in order to know how many people we have every single day. And as you see, the results were astonishing, because we have an average of 150,000 visitors every single day during all the year. And we have 200,000 people on peak days on July, August. So this is a huge amount. The pressure is very high. And another fact that emerged from this diagnosis is that tourists move differently. As we said before, tourists and visitors move through the city with different patterns and specific rhythms that are very different from the residents, and the use of urban territory changes depending on the hour of the day of the week, or the month of the year. And we have, as a management direction, we have to bear in mind that, because it's a key element to manage the touristic flows around the city. And it is essential to take into account that tourism has a tendency to concentrate in certain geographical areas, mostly the landmarks. And in the Barcelona city, the landmarks are concentrated in the central city. Here on your screen, you can see on blue the tweets by Spaniards telephones, and in red, the tweets by foreign telephones. So you can see there is a concentration on the central city in Plaza Catalunya, La Ramblas, Passeig de Gràcia, and then the main hotspots of the city, the coast, Sagrada Familia, Football Club Barcelona Stadium, and Montjuic. So we have this situation, and now I would like to highlight the main challenges that we diagnose with this strategy. Tourist sitting continuous movement. This is very important. We have to manage very different rhythms during the day and the week and the year. Pedestrian flows in overcrowded spaces, the concentration of trips made by tourists on the subway, just in 15 stations, the low penetration of public transport tourist cards, with the TD that now doesn't exist, but it's used the most. We have a problem also with the capacity of some bus lines that are connecting city landmarks. And we have a problem also with the challenge with the discretional coach, because they have a high impact on the public space and the use of the road. Also with the tourist bus, with the specific problems in saturated areas and over-planning lines. And the last is the leisure behavior of bicycles and personal mobility vehicles. So now I'm going to explain how we are facing these challenges. We focus on 5 lines. The first one is the maximum integration of tourist demand in mobility planning for the city. Here it is about to integrating tourism mobility management strategies in the guidelines of the urban policies. This is very, very important, and we have a great milestone on that strategy. The second one is the greater equity in the direct and social cost distributions, because the intensification of tourism mobility forces territories that want to be competitive to have more and better infrastructures and services. And visitors, tourists that visit Barcelona use intensively these infrastructures and services. And this requires significant financial resources that are largely subsidized by public administration. So we need to balance this imbalance between resources and cost. The third one is guarantee the environmental sustainability. So here it will be necessary to prioritize the tourist flows on foot, on high capacity public transport and low emission transport. That's clear, but we have to say that tourists in Barcelona move in a sustainable way. That's clear, more than residents. The fourth is to make tourist mobility compatible with everyday life, because it must be considered that the saturation problems in some services or spaces are not always related to the offer, but it is related to the management of the demand. So we have to bear in mind that. And the last one is to address the territorial nature of tourist mobility. So we want to encourage the territorial concentration strategies and take advantage of the fact that Barcelona has a destination largely exceeds its limits, his administrative limits. Now we have to address the functional reality of the metropolitan area. This is our strategy, and we concreted on these 12 actions. I'm not going to explain, don't worry, all 12 actions, but I want to focus on 2 of them. The first one, the strategic line 1, because here for the very first time, the mobility plan of Barcelona includes in his diagnosis and his actions elements of tourism mobility, in order that we said before to integrate tourism mobility in the general guidelines of urban mobility. And the last one, the strategic line 12, that it's we are working very hard on different projects that aim to monetize the pedestrian flows, mostly in some overcrowded spaces of the city. So we are working on all of them, but I want to focus on these 2 actions. And very quickly, as a conclusion, I would say that the challenges that emerge from tourism as tourism mobility will not be solved just with tourism policies agenda, but it must be integrated as a cross-cutting element within the urban policies agenda. And this is all for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Aina. As a comment from my side, as usual, when it comes to presentations from Barcelona, from the administration of Barcelona, it is very good to see that high quality research is feeding policy, both from a methodological point of view, using all the opportunities provided also by new technology to analyze mobility and to make sense of different mobility flows, and also from a conceptual point of view, because I think that it's quite innovative how you approach the mobility strategy with a perspective that takes in all the advances that we had in the understanding and conceptualization of mobilities as a transformative force for cities in the last 10 years, 15 years maybe. So going to the first questions that I get from the chat from Alejandro Gonzalez, I mean, it's quite the obvious question that many people would like to do to you. So is the city council now considering to update its tourist mobility strategy in the light of the new scenarios opened by COVID and post-COVID, that should be more attentive to mediate the risk of spread of the virus?
Yeah, I can expect this question. We're still working on the same line because we work tourism with a sustainable perspective, and I think that the COVID situation and post-COVID situation needs to rethink tourism in the same way. So we are still working in the same way. We think it is still valid, and we are just adjusting these European projects of monitoring pedestrian flows. We are just adapting this, but we think that the situation will be restored quite quickly in the future. We don't know exactly how and when, but I think our ADN is to continue working in the same way.
Okay, thank you. I have one question here in the Zoom chat by Wilbert, one of the previous speakers, who says it's very important to include the tourism data in wider mobility strategies. And my question is on the challenges of saturation, the problem of saturation of some spaces, bus dismounters, recreational cyclists, the wider public, pedestrians all have to share the same space. They also consider increasing this public space at the expenses of private vehicle and private vehicle storage.
Yeah, actually, the city council it's not on my department, but city council is actually working on this tactical urbanism. So they are increasing the free public space for pedestrians, bicycles in front of the car space. Yeah. They are working on that. I think it's a trend on all the major cities in Europe.
Thanks. Another comment and question from Monica in this chat from Monica Degen. Thought-provoking, interesting presentation. Can you reflect on the role of tourist flows on the sense of place or the attachment to place by locals? So is this also a dimension that you keep in mind, to what extent these mobilities that you have analyzed are supposed to influence the way in which locals perceive their city and use their city?
Yeah, obviously when we work on this projects to monitorize the pedestrian flows made by tourists, we are doing with the aiming of improving the urban fabric and the urban space. So we don't just do that to know data, but to improve the space. And that's obviously in, for example, in the main hotspot in Barcelona, Sagrada Familia, we have we had, sorry, because there is nobody now, Sagrada Familia is closed, but we had a problem of coexistence between residents and tourists, because residents can do their daily life normally. So we try to modify the space there physically to help this coexistence between them.
Oh, thanks. And I'm taking one last question from the chat, and apologize with because we are getting many questions for you actually, but you can still continue this conversation privately. So I have one question from Miguel Angel Orden, who is basically asking about how the creation of exclusive spaces for pedestrians will help the mobility of tourists in Barcelona. So if there is synergy between making the city more walkable for tourists and for locals.
Yeah, actually the tourists in Barcelona move mostly on foot. So it's the main way to move by tourists, and then by the use of metro. So as I said before, they have a more sustainable way to move in the city than their own residents. So we will encourage the trips by foot in the city, but it's something it's happening now. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Aina. So
Thank you
we are moving on to the next and last presentation for this session. That will be from Lorena Beier, who I saw you. I see you on in the screen. And please go ahead. You're connecting from Argentina, right?
Yes.
No.
Thank you, Paula.
Nuestro pésame por los acontecimientos, the recent events in Argentina.
Se nos murió Diego.
Sí. Go ahead.
Okay. I want to share my screen. Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay.
Put it in full.
Yes.
Full view. Okay.
Good morning or good afternoon. Now it depends where you are. Like Paolo says, I'm from Argentina. Here is 8 a.m. I'm a PhD candidate. I'm doing the lecture and Jewish doctoral at Rovira, Virgili. And I'm a professor at Universidad Provincial del Sudoeste. This presentation is part of my thesis work that I'm doing with PhD Salvador Anton Clavé and PhD Hernán Pedro Vigier. And the title of this presentation is Attraction Dynamics of Creative Workers by Type of Tourist Destination and Classes of Workers in the province of Buenos Aires, Argentina. To start, the content of the presentations has the background, then the objectives and the hypotheses, then the study area that we use to the empirical work, the data and method that we also use for the empirical work, then the result, and lastly, the conclusions. The creative workers are creative people that are key drivers of urban and regional growth. And Florida was the first author who made a research about them and make classifications that is the professionals, the creative, the super creative, and the bohemians. And what makes them particularly interesting from a geographical perspective is that the creative workers are unevenly distributed across the cities and the regions. And they are especially attracted by places with different characteristics by a urban climate with particular social, economics, and environmental factors. Several authors made research about the different attractiveness factors, but the most important was made by Florida, that was the talent, the tolerance, the technology, and the amenities. And also several authors made different empirical works about these attractiveness factors in different contexts, like USA, Nordic countries of Europe, Spain, and particularly in tourist destinations, there are a few like González Reverte et al., Olano, and we recently made research about tourist destination in province of Buenos Aires, Argentina. The objective of these presentations is to analyze the regional distribution of creative workers in tourist destinations in province of Buenos Aires, Argentina, and specifically know how tourist municipalities behave in relation to their ability to attract the different types of creatives. And we have two hypotheses. The first one is that the spatial distribution of the three subgroups of creative workers, I mean the professionals, the super creative, and the bohemians, follow particular patterns of location that differ from each other. And the second hypothesis is that the presence of creative workers in certain territories is influenced by the tourist typology of the municipality. To make the empirical work, we use to study the study area, that is the 110 municipalities of the province of Buenos Aires. You can also see in the map of Argentina where is located the province, and you can also see that there are all of the interior municipalities of the province, except the 24 peri-urban municipalities and Ciudad Autónoma de Buenos Aires, that is the capital. And specifically, if we see the municipalities typology map, we can also find that we have 28 tourist municipalities and 82 non-tourist municipalities. We can see also that the most tourist municipalities are located in the coast of the province. We use from data that mainly microdata from INDEC. INDEC is Argentine Statistical Office, and we use it to build the creative worker classifications, the attractiveness factor, that we also use data from provincial directions, and to build the typology of the tourist municipalities, that we are going to see them in the next slides. And with all this data, to do the empirical work, we use descriptive statistics and regressions to analyze the association between the variables. The attractiveness factor of place that we use in the empirical work was for talents, we used the percent of gay couples, young people, foreign born, monoparental families, cohabiting couples, and the ratio of women in executive positions. For talent, we use the percent of entrepreneurs and the percent of university population and post-university population. For technology, we only have the percent of patents, and for territory, we use the amount of libraries, museums, popular parties and monuments and historical sites, theater and cultural spaces, and Inca spaces that are cinemas. We also have to say the limitation of this approach because of the available information or data. We can see that, for example, in technology, we only have available data for patents and not for marks like other empirical work used. To know if the tourist destination attract more creative workers like non-tourist municipalities, we made classification of the municipalities, and we use two dimensions, the urban and the touristic. For the urban, we classificate the municipalities in small, medium, and large with the amount of populations. And for tourists, we use the amount of hotels and extra hotel accommodations and second residence. And we also can see that we have 4 touristic municipalities, 5 vacational municipalities, 19 diversified municipalities, and as we said in the previous slide, we have 82 non-tourist municipalities. Besides, the tourist municipalities are less than the non-tourist. They have the 57% of the population of the province. It is because the vacationals include, for example, Mar del Plata and Bahía Blanca, that both are large cities and important cities of the province. For the results, the first result we found with the statistical descriptive statistics, we want to know the spatial distributions of the participation of each creative worker, and we found that professional was located mostly in non-tourist municipalities. Super creative in specialized tourist municipalities, specifically in Mar del Plata, and the bohemians in all tourist municipalities, I mean specialized, diversified, and vacationals. And we can also observe that tourist municipalities tend to attract the most representative creatives. I mean that the super creative and the bohemians, who are the most representative creatives, are located in the tourist municipalities. We can also see this map where we can observe the participation of the different creative workers in the different types of municipalities. And we can also obtain that the bohemians was a high participation in the coast tourist destinations. And we also see that in the coast tourist destination, there have a medium participation of super creative and a medium participation of professionals. In summary, we can say that there is no homogeneous distribution of creatives, but there are certain municipalities that attract certain types of creative workers. Following with the results, we can also find that tourist municipalities have the higher rate of creativity, being the human factors, I mean the tolerance and the talent, the preponderance of the indices. And we can also see that the diversified tourist municipalities have the higher proportion of technology and amenities. And the last result we obtained when we want to know the correlation between the creative workers and the place attractiveness, I mean the 4 factors, the tolerance, the talent, the technology, and the amenities, we use the multiple regression and we applied it to all municipalities and only for tourist municipalities, because we want to know if the tourist municipalities attract more creative workers. And we found that the better result was when we consider the tourist municipalities and the bohemians. And if we want to know what factor attract more creative workers, we found that the bohemians were attracted more for talent and amenities, the super creative, the tolerance, and the professionals, the talent. And in summary, we can say that the relationship between the variable is present unevenly. Finally, we found 3 main conclusions. First, that human factor, I mean the tolerance and the talent, make the difference in the attraction of creatives in tourist destinations. And we can also say that it can be demonstrated how, factors attract more qualified human factors. Specifically, if we want to observe the tourist destinations, we can find also that specialized and diversified tourist destinations are those with the highest creative index, and specifically with the coastal tourist municipalities, we can observe that those are who have a high participation of Bohemians. And we thought that it would open a new line of research to analyze the particularities of this type of municipality in the influence of their attraction creatives. Thank you.
Lorena. I was checking the chat for comments. We have a question about methodology. It doesn't really specify what is the type of methodological detail that this person who sent. Maybe you are in the chat now, you can continue this. Otherwise, I will be waiting for other questions from the chat. I have one comment myself for you, Lorena. So you are describing which areas attract which kind of people and on the base of which amenities, but is it possible also to know a little bit about from where they are moving into the city? So if you can find some specific patterns of places of origin in relation to places of destination. Is this something, is this an aspect that you covered in your study?
So where the people are from, you mean?
Yes.
Yes, it's a good suggestion, but we are not researching that where people are from.
But are they? So do you know, for example, if there are foreigners or like?
When we measure the tolerance, we measure the foreign people, but we only have the data from INDEC.
The whole neighborhood, let's say. So you can see how the composition of the neighborhood is changing with the influence. Okay.
No, it's only micro data that they are foreign people, but we don't know where are they from and where are they living specifically.
Okay. I don't have any other comments. Maybe Salvador, you want to add something on that? Okay, no. So we are going to close this session now. We are going to get back in the room and on YouTube for the live streaming at 3 o'clock Spanish time with a second session called Digital Fingerprints, Technological Tools and Tourist Mobility that will be chaired by Salvador Anton, and in that case our keynote will be Dr. Yang from Temple University. So thank you all, thanks to all the presenter and the keynote and the people who have intervened in the chat with questions for this very interesting first quarter of our event. Anything else? We are stopping the streaming now. Thank you very much, and see you in 2 hours and a half.
Thank you very much, Paolo, and everybody. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Paolo, and the other organizers.
Thank you very much.